NBC national political correspondent Steve Kornacki is standing by at the big board with the final NBC News poll ahead of the election. Steve, lay it all out for us.
Well, I think it's only appropriate after this campaign of unpredictability, uncertainty. We have a tie in our final NBC News national poll here. 49 Harris, 49 Trump. We also had a tie a few weeks ago, the time before this, that we were in the poll, in the field with the poll. One thing to note about this, though, just taking a step back, is if you think to the last two presidential races, Donald Trump was on the ballot for the Republicans in each of those. The national polls were never this close in either one of those elections. In 2020, Joe Biden led consistently. Turned out there was a bit of a polling miss there. 2016, Hillary Clinton led consistently as well. This has been much closer all the way through this election. That Trump number, there's always that debate of where the ceiling is for Donald Trump. The Trump number has been getting higher, incrementally here, but maybe significantly in the polling this election than it's been in the past. The gender gap. This is emerging as a huge story throughout the campaign and maybe a dominant one on election night. Put this in some perspective. In our poll, among men, it's an absolute landslide for Donald Trump. He leads Harris by 18 points. Among women, it is a landslide for Harris over Trump. She leads Trump by 16. Combined 34-point gender gap. Now, we've been talking about gender gaps in presidential races going back to 1980, Reagan versus Carter. In all of that time, the highest gender gap we've ever recorded before this, 24 points. This 10 points higher if this were to actually happen in the election or anything like this, much higher than the previous record for the gender gap. Also note here, Trump is actually getting a little bit more in terms of his margin with men is a little bigger than Harris's is among women. Trump people have really emphasized their message to men, especially in the closing stages of this campaign, thinking they may be able to sort of turn the gender gap, which is traditionally understood as maybe more of a Democratic advantage, around in their favor, run up a bigger score among men than Harris does among women. But there are also some indications that Harris, we'll get to this one in a second, may be benefiting from a sort of surprise female interest. I'll get to that in 1 second. I did want to show this as well. The headwinds Harris is up against here. Biden with a 41% job approval rating. Again, that's been consistent for a long time with Biden. It's a reason why Democrats, some wanted him out of the race, wanted to replace him with Harris, but still, Harris is part of this administration, and this is where the president stands. And significantly, we asked again retrospectively, do you approve or disapprove of Trump's performance when he was president? That number, 48% in our poll, better than Trump ever did when he actually was president. And again, higher, 7 points higher than Biden's number. So is this cutting against Harris? Is this boosting Trump? And then there is the curveball. And this gets to that question of the gender gap that I was just talking about. How about this? Look at the state, Iowa. We have not been talking about Iowa this entire campaign. The parties have not been talking about Iowa. The candidates have not been campaigning in Iowa. It's been thought to be a safe red Trump state. He won it by nearly 10 points in both 2016 and 2020. Along comes this poll from the Des Moines Register, which, by the way, this poll has an outstanding track record within Iowa. And in fact, in 2020, in the closing days of that campaign, remember, all the polling, as I was saying, was pointing to something pretty big for Biden in 2020. It was this same poll, the Saturday before the election in 2020, that caught, that Trump was still very strong in the Midwest states, very strong with blue-collar white voters, and that ended up being why the election was so close in 2020. This poll caught a phenomenon in 20 that other polls weren't, and it's catching this. Harris by 3 in a state that Trump won by 8 points, a little bit more than 8 points last time. Now, is this real? Is this, polls can be, you can have a miss sometimes. You can have a big miss. So obviously that's a big question here. But behind this is a massive gender gap, massive Harris support among women, and particularly among senior women. That's what they're finding in this poll, in independent women. The backdrop in Iowa, abortion has really taken center stage. A 6-week abortion ban went into effect this summer. There are also not presidential candidates campaigning there, but there are some hot congressional races. Millions of dollars of ads around the issue of abortion have been in the air in Iowa. So if this is real, the other question becomes, is it state specific? Or is it something that's sort of important for other Midwestern states, for other states around the country? And that leads us just quickly here. This will all start filling up Tuesday night. But if that Iowa poll is something that spills over to other states, the most logical place to look would be right across the Mississippi River. Iowa and Wisconsin are like political cousins, very heavily white states, demographically very similar, tons of blue-collar areas that used to vote for Democrats, voted for Democrats right up through Obama, have come heavily toward Trump. If you're seeing significant movement in Iowa that's going to spill over elsewhere, Wisconsin, a place to look there. And also there is that other question with Iowa, just are there other states outside the battleground we haven't been talking about that could give us surprises on Tuesday? One that the Trump campaign has been making noise about. The polling hasn't necessarily been there for them yet, but we've seen surprises before. We'll keep an eye on it. I'll just flag New Hampshire because it's 7 o'clock. We get a lot of the results from New Hampshire. This will be one of our first readouts on election night. Is New Hampshire producing some kind of a surprise? J.D. Vance was there yesterday. Remember, Biden won this by 7, but Trump nearly took this state. He came 3,000 votes from taking it in 2016. His campaign, at least, is saying they think he can put this kind of coalition back together. Again, that'll be an early test on election night if what the Trump campaign has been saying is true, and more broadly, if there's more action outside of the battleground states than we've been thinking.
Steve Kornacki, thank you. And just don't forget New Hampshire, not right now, but it previously had an all-woman delegation, 2 senators, the governor, Congress members. So they know how to vote for women there in New Hampshire. Thank you, Steve. I want to bring in Cornell Belcher, and he's the political analyst, pollster, and Democratic strategist. And Cornell, so we just got some new results from PBS NPR Marist, and showing Harris leading Trump by 4 points within the margin of error, taken in context within the NBC News poll, though, and the Iowa poll from Ann Seltzer, and all the other polls that you see, your own polling, campaign polling. What do you think is going on? What do you think is making a difference? Is it the closing messages, the angry message, anti-female message from Donald Trump and his surrogates, compared, of course, to what the joy and the optimism coming from Harris?
Well, thank you, ladies, for the opportunity to talk to you. Look, what I tell people all the time now is to stop riding the polar coaster. The polls are going to be all over the place, depending on what universe and what model universe you have. Look, you look at the PBS poll, she's at 51. You look at ABC's poll, she's at 51. Look at NBC's poll, she's at 49. Those are all sort of within the margin of error. There's some interesting things going on in the NBC poll where she's winning independents, but yet not pulling ahead. In 2012, on the Obama campaign, we didn't win independents. So there's a lot of things happening underneath. But here's the signal, I think, that's in the noise, right? You always got to find the signal in the noise in the data. And I think the signal is, if you look at most of these polls, Donald Trump has a hard time getting above 47, 48%. Now, why is that important? Because polling aside, on back-to-back election days, ladies, where is Donald Trump at? He's usually at 47%, right? So I think part of the signal in this noise is he's been unable to raise his ceiling. And without raising his ceiling, especially if you have strong turnout, like if you have turnout looking anything like you saw in 2020, how does he get there if he's not raising his ceiling? And I think to that point, his closing argument has not helped him raise the ceiling. When you close on racism and telling women that I'm going to protect you whether you want to be protected or not, ending on sexism, it's a tough close if you're going to try to raise your ceiling. And I think more so than anything else in the data that I see, whomever's poll we're looking at, I'm seeing Donald Trump consistently at a ceiling that he's got to get above if turnout is strong in order for him to win.
Looking deeper into this, Cornell, one piece of this new poll that stuck out, and this is according to the PBS write-up, 8% of Republicans say they'll back Harris. That's double the number of Democrats who say they will back Donald Trump. Are these closing people? What do you read into that? And is that consistent with what you've been saying?
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, the Harris campaign strategy of leaning in, by the way, ladies, it's historic. Like, no Democrat has ever had the endorsement of Dick Cheney, right? No one has ever been doing, campaign rallies with Republicans, and we've not had Republican leaders get behind Donald Trump. And so you are seeing a different kind of coalition. I think she is going to build, look, I worked for the Obama in 08 and 12. And I think she's going to have a different coalition than Obama or Biden did when they won majorities. I think her coalition is going to be a little broader and a little bit even more diverse. Because I got to tell you, we were not pulling 8-9% of Republicans in the last election. But also, here's the secret thing: women voters. Right? I think we are probably underestimating how ticked off women voters are. And if you look at the registration numbers of how women have been registering and how they're turning out, women are going to have a lot to say on election night. And I think it's going to be really problematic for Republicans. And right now in that Marist poll, the other interesting thing is she's at 45% among white voters. That would be a really high watermark over the last 2 decades for a Democrat at the national. Obama didn't get 45% of white vote, nor did Biden get 45% of the white vote when he won last time around. So we do see a different kind of coalition forming in the data.